My name is Darcy Wells, I'm 33 years old, and for most of my life, I thought being the hardworking, dependable daughter was enough to earn me a place at my parents' table. Then came their message. Darcy, we've decided to spend Easter only with Gabby and her family this year. The kids are so excited for the egg hunt, and we really want to keep it peaceful and simple. We hope you understand. I read it twice, my throat tight. To them, Easter meant pastel baskets, smiling children, and Gabby's perfect suburban family. I didn't fit into that picture. I never had. My reply was a single word. Enjoy. What they didn't know was that I had already bought a little stone house on the shores of Lake Garda in Italy. And that this Easter, nearly everyone in our extended family would be with me, everyone except my parents. Before I dive into what happened next, let me know in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe if stories about family drama make you feel just a little better about your own holidays. Gabby and I are twins. Born minutes apart, but treated like we belonged to different worlds. She was the light, easy, radiant, adored. I was the steady one, quiet, reliable, invisible. When we were kids, I made lists of chores and crossed them off one by one. Gabby made excuses and got away with them. Teachers smiled at her charm. Neighbors forgave her tantrums because she had those sparkling eyes and dimples. Meanwhile, I worked harder and harder, hoping someone would notice. Our parents always had an explanation. Darcy, you're independent. You'll always figure things out. But Gabby needs more support. That word, independent, was both my crown and my curse. It meant I didn't get help. It meant I didn't get celebrated. It meant that by the time we hit adulthood, Gabby had been carried while I had carried myself. At 16, she unwrapped a brand new SUV in the driveway, complete with a giant bow. At 19, I scraped together savings from 2 part-time jobs to buy a used Toyota that coughed black smoke on cold mornings. By 33, the pattern was carved deep. Gabby was married, with 2 kids, our parents' perfect dream. I had a career in San Francisco, late nights in glass towers, promotions I earned with blood and nerves. But in their eyes, that wasn't enough. Without a husband and children, I was unfinished. You'll meet the right person one day, Mom would say softly, as if everything I had built was temporary, a placeholder for the real thing. So when that Easter message arrived, telling me I wasn't needed because Gabby's children mattered more, it wasn't a surprise. It was just the loudest proof yet. I sat at my desk, phone trembling in my hand. The message blurred as my vision stung. All those years of pushing down the ache, of accepting scraps of attention, it came back in one sharp wave. But beneath the hurt, something else stirred. Clarity. If I wasn't invited to their table, maybe I didn't need it. Maybe I could build my own. And I knew exactly where. My little stone house on Lake Garda, Italy, a dream I had turned into reality after years of work. This Easter, the doors of that house would open. And almost everyone in the family would walk through them. Everyone except the 2 people who told me to stay away. That night, I sat on my balcony in San Francisco with a notebook in my lap. The city lights glittered below, but my focus was thousands of miles away. At the top of the page, in bold letters, I wrote, Easter in Italy. The idea felt reckless, even absurd. But the longer I stared at the words, the stronger it became. I didn't have to fight for a seat at my parents' table. I could build a new one where I wasn't an afterthought. I began listing names. Aunt Caroline, my mother's sister, who had always defended me quietly. My cousins, Ryan and Melissa, who laughed at my jokes even when no one else listened. Uncle James and his husband, Victor, who had never once compared me to Gabby. Uncle Richard, Aunt Susan, and their 2 teenage daughters who still texted me more than my own parents did. The more names I wrote, the more my chest loosened. The next morning, I dialed Caroline first. Darcy, what happened? She demanded after I told her about my parents' message. That's cruel. I know, I said. But I'm done begging for scraps. I bought a house in Italy, and I want to host Easter there. Will you come? The line went silent. For a second, I thought the call had dropped. Then Caroline's voice returned, thick with emotion. Oh, my darling girl. Of course I'll come. And let me just say, I am proud of you. More than you know. Her words lit a fire inside me. By the end of that week, my phone was buzzing nonstop. Ryan and Melissa said yes immediately. Easter in Italy? Ryan laughed. I'm booking flights tonight. Uncle James and Victor were ecstatic. Finally, someone's shaking things up in this family, James said. Even Richard and Susan agreed, their daughter squealing in the background when they heard. Within 3 days, I had confirmation, almost the entire extended family was on board. Everyone except my parents. And that was when the most unexpected message of all arrived. From Daniel, my brother-in-law. Darcy, can we talk? It's important. When Daniel's message lit up my phone, my first instinct was to ignore it. My sister's husband had always been polite but distant, never once stepping into the quiet war between Gabby and me. What could he possibly have to say now? But something about the wording, "it's important," made me call him back. Darcy, he began, his voice low, almost guilty. I heard about Easter. Your parents told us you weren't coming. I just want you to know I think that was wrong. For a second, I couldn't breathe. Daniel, of all people, siding with me? I'm doing something different this year, I told him carefully. I'm hosting my own Easter, in Italy. Most of the family is coming. There was a pause, then a slow whistle. Wow. That's incredible. Listen, this may sound strange, but would there be room for us? For me, Gabby, and the kids? My stomach nodded. Gabby. Always Gabby. For years, I had lived in her shadow, and here it was again, threatening to follow me even into the sanctuary I was trying to build. Daniel's request triggered a memory so vivid it almost hurt. I was 16, sitting at the kitchen table, textbook spread in front of me. I had just aced my biology exam, something I was so proud of I thought my parents might, for once, be proud too. Mom barely glanced up. That's nice, Darcy. But you know, grades only get you so far. Dad added without looking up from his newspaper, what really matters is family. Children. That's a woman's real success. I remember the sting, the way my throat closed. Gabby, sitting beside me, had been flipping through a magazine about prom dresses. Don't worry, Darcy, she teased lightly. I'll give them the grandkids. You can be the rich aunt who brings presents. They all laughed. I didn't. That moment branded itself into me, the unshakable truth in my parents' eyes that unless I produced children, I would always be second best. And Gabby, with her picture-perfect family, would always be first. Now Daniel was asking if I would let that same sister step into the holiday I had carved out for myself. My first instinct was to say no. To slam the door, finally, and claim something of my own. But another voice rose in my mind, Dr. Patel's, my therapist. What would happen if you prioritized your needs instead of your parents' approval? My need wasn't to exclude Gabby. My need was to create a holiday where I wasn't invisible. Still, I couldn't give him an answer right away. There's space, I said slowly. But I need time to think. This has to be different. If Gabby comes, it cannot be the same story again. Daniel's exhale of relief was almost immediate. Fair enough. And Darcy? For what it's worth, I think you deserve this. More than anyone. When the call ended, I stared at my phone, heart racing. For the first time in my life, Gabby's husband was on my side. And that terrified me almost as much as it thrilled me. The night after Daniel's call, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling of my San Francisco apartment, the glow of the city pressing faintly through the curtains. The idea of Gabby at my Easter table twisted in my chest. For 3 decades she had been the golden twin, the center of every conversation, the sun I orbited whether I wanted to or not. Did I really want to invite that gravity into the one holiday I had finally claimed for myself? I turned onto my side, clutching the pillow. The thought of her laugh, her casual way of pulling attention without even trying, it made my stomach knot. My house on Lake Garda wasn't meant to be another stage for her spotlight. It was supposed to be mine. But Daniel's voice kept echoing, "Darcy, I think you deserve this. More than anyone." And for once, he hadn't said Gabby. He had said me. My mind dragged me backward, to when I was 25. I had just been promoted to project manager at a tech startup, a huge step, one I had worked 18-hour days to earn. That evening I drove home to my parents' house, hoping to share the news. Maybe, just maybe, they'd finally see me. I walked into the kitchen, where Mom was slicing vegetables for dinner. "Mom, I got promoted today," I said, unable to keep the excitement from my voice. "I'm managing a whole team now. With a raise." She paused, knife hovering over the cutting board. Then she gave me a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "That's fine, sweetheart. But you know, a woman without children isn't really living. Money and titles don't mean anything if there's no family to carry them forward." The words hit me like ice water. "I'm 25, I whispered. "I have time." She shook her head, turning back to the vegetables. "Time runs faster than you think. Gabby understands that. She's already building a real life. You're just playing pretend with paychecks." The sting of that sentence never left me. I remember standing there in the kitchen, the smell of onions sharp in the air, thinking that no matter how high I climbed, to her I'd never be enough. Without children, I wasn't a daughter she could be proud of. I was a shadow of what she believed a woman should be. The memory faded, but the ache stayed. It explained everything: the Easter rejection, the decades of dismissal, the reason Gabby's family always came first. To my parents, a woman without children was a woman half-formed. A woman with no legacy. I sat up in bed, pulled my laptop onto my knees, and opened the email chain with my property manager in Italy. If I was going to do this, if I was going to build a holiday that belonged to me, I had to pour myself into it completely. I booked extra beds for the guest rooms. I ordered linens and new cookware. I arranged for a van to pick relatives up from the airport in Milan and drive them to Lake Garda. With every click, I felt the knot in my chest loosen. This wasn't about revenge anymore. Not entirely. It was about creating something new. A place where I was more than the independent twin. A place where my choices mattered, where my life had weight even without a husband or children. And yet, when I shut the laptop, the question still hovered. If Gabby walked through my door, would all of this crumble? Would I fall back into old roles, the overlooked one, the quiet one, the spare twin? Or could I hold my ground this time? I whispered into the dark, as if asking the villa itself. This has to be different. It has to be. Because if it wasn't, Easter in Italy would turn into just another reminder that no matter how far I ran, my parents' voices still lived inside me. 2 weeks later I was watching the Alps drift past below a wingtip, the cabin lights dimmed to a soft midnight. I didn't sleep. I traced plans in my head, rewrote seating charts, argued with ghosts that had my mother's voice. By the time the plane touched down in Milan at dawn, I felt raw, but I also felt ready. The rental car hummed like a secret as I drove east. The highway gave way to 2-lane roads, then to a ribbon of asphalt stitched along the lake's dark satin. Lake Garda breathed in the morning, silver light, slate water, cypresses pointing like quiet exclamation marks. When I turned into the gravel lane and saw my little stone house at the end, something uncoiled in me. Weathered shutters, a roof the color of toasted bread, wisteria climbing the wall as if it had always known I would come. Inside, the house smelled faintly of old wood and lemon oil. The kitchen was my favorite: wide farmhouse sink, open shelves, a butcher block island that begged for flour and elbows. A clay bowl on the counter held late lemons from a neighbor's tree. I set down my keys and pressed my palm to the cool stone of the wall. "We're going to do this," I whispered, to the house, to myself. I made lists, then lists for the lists. Guest rooms, fresh linen, small carafes of water, a sprig of rosemary on each pillow. Kids' attic nook, floor cushions, board games, a string of paper lanterns shaped like eggs. Garden, sweep the terrace, check the grill, set out lanterns for the path. Kitchen, call the butcher for lamb, the baker for colomba, pick up ricotta and candied orange for pastiera. When in doubt, add bread and more candles. On the second day, Paolo, my property manager, arrived with a van and a grin that could convince fog to lift. He hauled in folding chairs and extra cots, then insisted on tightening the hinge on the back door because its size. He taught me the weather signs, how wind on Garda shifts like a sentence mid-thought, and pointed out where the afternoon sun would land on the long table if I set it parallel to the French doors. "And here," he said, setting his hand over the table's head, "is your place." The words landed like a blessing I hadn't known to ask for. My place. That night I stood alone in the dining room and practiced not apologizing for it. I placed a single card at the head of the table, Darcy in black ink, firm letters. No one would slide it aside for anyone else this time. I tucked the marker into my pocket like a talisman. The lake taught me its routine. Mornings, the water held itself still enough to mirror clouds. Afternoons, a brisk wind lifted the skin of it into 1,000 dimples. I fell into a rhythm of my own. Market runs. Emails to relatives with travel instructions. A call with Aunt Caroline, full of laughter that sounded like wind chimes. Texts from my cousins, "Do we bring swim gear?" "Yes, is there good gelato?" "Obviously." Uncle James sent a spreadsheet for wine pairings. Victor replied with a competing spreadsheet for cheese. I liked that there was room for both. In the village, the baker promised me 2 colombi shaped like doves. The butcher saved a leg of lamb studded with rosemary and garlic, Easter on a platter. The grocer tucked extra asparagus into my bag with a conspiratorial wink. I bought too many eggs and dyed them the colors of lake mornings, dove gray, chlorophyll green, a blue shifted pink that looked like the inside of a shell. I set them to dry on the kitchen windowsill and told myself this was for the kids, but really it was for the child version of me who was always asked to hold the camera while other people hunted. On the third evening, when the air was syrupy with wood smoke, Daniel texted, "We're booked. Landing Friday." I stared at the screen a long time. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. Then I typed, "You're welcome. My house, my rules. I'll send them tonight." It felt ridiculous at first, writing rules for Easter like a bouncer at a nightclub. But the document practically wrote itself. 1. No comparisons. No Gabby's way versus Darcy's way. 2. No talk of who is real family. Everyone invited is real. 3. No comments about children as the only measure of a life. 4. If you catch me shrinking, remind me to sit at the head of the table. 5. If anyone, tries to move my place card, we take a walk and reset. I read it twice, sent it to Daniel, then to Aunt Caroline with a nervous laugh. Caroline replied almost immediately, "Proud of you. Print it and tape it inside a kitchen cabinet." I did. Sleep got easier. I woke before sunrise, made coffee in a dented mocha pot that gurgled like an old friend, and planned the table, linen the color of cream, simple plates, green glass tumblers that caught the light and threw it back as fragments. I folded napkins into soft pockets and slid an olive branch into each one. I told myself I was decorating, really, I was building a story in which I belonged. The first arrivals were Ryan and Melissa. A text from the driveway, then the slam of car doors, then the music of their voices ricocheting through the hall. They walked from room to room with their hands outstretched, as if blessing the space. We cooked that night with the windows open, the three of us moving around each other in a choreography no one needed to explain. We ate too much pasta and decided that the place cards needed a little gold in the corner for luck, so we added them, laughing when I inevitably smudged one with olive oil. "Leave it," Melissa said. "Proof the host eats." The next morning brought Uncle Richard and Aunt Susan with their daughters, who burst into the attic as if they'd been training for it. Uncle James and Victor arrived at dusk, trailing suitcases and stories and a case of wine so heavy we had to roll it. The house changed with each arrival, filling with the smells of people and their small habits. Phone chargers appeared in the outlets, a scarf draped itself over a chair, someone's lavender shampoo turned the bathroom into a field. At odd moments, I'd feel a tremor of panic, like earthquake aftershocks, at the idea of Gabby stepping through my door. I pictured her leaning in the kitchen doorway, that tilt of her head that always pulled a camera's focus and, somehow, a room's. I'd steady my breathing and walk back to the cabinet and read the rules aloud, a prayer disguised as a checklist. On the second night, after the dishes were stacked and the fire exhaled itself into embers, I took my coffee onto the terrace with Caroline. The lake wore the moon like a delicate bruise. "Do you think she'll try?" I asked. "To take your seat?" Caroline said, gentle but unflinching. "Probably. Not with her hands. With a joke. With a pout. With an offer to help. That's how it's always been." "And if I let her?" My voice was very small. Caroline turned her mug in her hands. "Then we put it back. You're not alone in this story anymore." The next day was all hustle. We rehearsed the Easter egg hunt route. Ryan insisted on planting decoy eggs for fun, set up a kids' table under the olive tree, and drafted a rain plan because Paolo swore the weather would decide at the last minute. I rubbed the lamb with rosemary and crushed garlic, slid it into the fridge, and taped the cooking timeline to the wall like a mission briefing. Noon, lamb in. 12:30, water for asparagus. 1, heat for pastiera. Every time I passed the paper, I touched it, as if to anchor myself to a sequence no one else could steal. In quieter minutes, my phone vibrated with texts from home. "Mom, have you decided whether you'll stop by on Easter Monday? We could do a quick lunch if you're not too busy with work." The casual cruelty of it made my jaw ache. Not "Are you okay?" Not "We miss you." A lunch, like an errand. I put the phone face down and went outside to watch the wind rearrange the lake. By late afternoon, every bed was made, every place card dotted with gold. I ironed a dress I didn't need to iron, then put it on anyway. The house sounded like a song, pots clinking, cousins arguing about whether the egg dye needed more vinegar, someone upstairs testing a creaky floorboard like a human metronome. I took one last walk through the rooms with a basket of votives, placing small flames where shadows gathered. I was lighting the last candle when the gravel outside whispered of tires. A slow arc of headlights slid across the kitchen ceiling, once, then twice, as if the car wasn't sure it had found the right story. I pressed my palm to the cool stone again, felt my pulse settle under it, and went to the door. I didn't know, as I reached for the handle, whether it would be my sister, or another cousin, or simply a delivery man with the Colombi I'd forgotten I ordered. I only knew this. Whoever stood on the other side, my place at the table wasn't moving. If you're still with me, tell me in the comments, what's one boundary you would put on your own family holiday? And hit subscribe so you don't miss what happens when that door opens. The villa was alive before I even opened the door. Laughter spilled through the shutters, suitcases rolled across gravel, children shrieked as they discovered the olive trees were perfect for hide and seek. Ryan and Melissa had already claimed the kitchen, arguing about sauce. Uncle James and Victor uncorked their first bottle of Amarone before the sun had even dipped. Caroline sat by the fire like a queen, watching the chaos with sparkling eyes. It felt like a holiday already, until the crunch of new tires on the driveway stilled me. I wiped my hands on my apron and stepped outside. The car door opened, and Gabby climbed out. She looked tired, shadows beneath her eyes, but her kids bounded past her with pure joy. Grace clutched an egg I had dyed pink, squealing, "Aunt Darcy," before I could say a word. Then Gabby and I faced each other. For the first time in years, there was no buffer of parents, no scripted roles. Just us. Welcome, I said finally. She nodded. Thanks for having us. Later that night, after the kids had fallen asleep and the others drifted toward the terrace with glasses of wine, I found Gabby in the kitchen. She was rinsing dishes that didn't need rinsing, her shoulders tight. You don't have to do that, I said. I know. She set a plate aside, then leaned against the sink. I just needed a minute. Silence stretched between us. For years, I had rehearsed speeches in my head, accusations, demands, words about how she stole the spotlight and left me in shadow. But standing there, I saw something else, the cracks in her armor. Gabby, I said slowly, do you even know how much space you've taken up? How often I felt erased? Her eyes flicked to mine. Do you know how much pressure I've been under? You think I had it easy because they called me the favorite. But every mistake I made, they told me I was failing as a wife, failing as a mother. Dad once told me if I didn't hold it together, I'd be worthless. Her voice cracked. Do you know what it's like to live with that? I froze. My memories flooded, all those years of hearing, Darcy, without children you're incomplete. And here was Gabby, on the other side of the same coin, branded with without perfection, you're a failure. It hit me like lightning, our parents hadn't built one perfect daughter and one spare. They had built two prisoners in different cages. For a long moment neither of us spoke. Then I stepped closer. Maybe we were both wrong. Maybe it was never about you against me. Maybe it was about them. She swallowed, nodded. Then, to my shock, she reached for my hand. I'm sorry, she whispered. Me too, I said. And for the first time, I meant it. The next evening, the house buzzed like a hive. Easter dinner glowed under candles, the lamb fragrant, the table lined with cousins laughing. Gabby sat beside me, not across from me, and when Uncle James raised a toast to new traditions, she clinked her glass with mine. Halfway through dessert, phones began buzzing. One after another. Mom. Darcy, have you heard from Gabby? We haven't seen them all day. Dinner's cold. Where are they? We're worried. Answer. Gabby's phone lit up too, her name shouted in all caps. She looked at me, guilty and tired. What do we do? She asked. I picked up my own phone, flipped the camera to wide angle. We show them. I gathered everyone around the table. Kids held up dyed eggs, cousins leaned in with wine glasses, Caroline threw her arm over my shoulder. Gabby slid in next to me, our hands still linked. I snapped the photo, our entire family, bathed in candlelight, alive with joy. And together, Gabby and I hit send. The photo had barely left our phones before the replies started. First Mom. What is this? Where are you? Then Dad. You can't just disappear like this. This isn't funny. Another ping. Gabby, the children should be here with us. What are you thinking? The air around me tightened. Even thousands of miles away, their voices felt like iron hands gripping my shoulders. But this time I wasn't alone. Gabby stared at her phone, pale. They're furious, she whispered. They're saying I've ruined Easter. I touched her arm. No, they did that when they told me not to come. We just stopped playing along. The phone rang. Mom's name. Gabby hesitated, then pressed answer and put it on speaker. Gabrielle? My mother's voice was sharp, high-pitched with outrage. Where are you? We've been waiting all day. Gabby drew a breath, glanced at me, then said, steady, we're in Italy. At Darcy's house. With everyone else. Silence. For a moment, I thought the call had dropped. Then Dad's voice thundered through the line. What? That's ridiculous. Darcy doesn't even have a house like that. I do, I cut in, my voice calm. I bought this house. I invited the family. And they came. Mom's gasp was audible. Darcy, how could you steal this from us? Holidays are supposed to be about family. I let the words hang for a beat before answering. Exactly. And this time, family means all of us. Not just the parts you choose. Across the table, Gabby squeezed my hand. After the call ended, abruptly, with Mom's voice cracking and Dad's muttered threats of "we'll talk later," the villa was quiet for a moment. Everyone looked at us, waiting to see if the old dynamic would return, if Gabby would side with them. Instead, she straightened her shoulders. "I'm done letting them decide what counts as family," she said firmly. "I'm not their puppet anymore." The room exhaled, as if a long-held breath had been released. I blinked at her, stunned. This was the same sister who had once mocked me for working too much, who had basked in their favoritism. But now, sitting beside me in the glow of candles, she looked freer than I'd ever seen her. I lifted my glass. "Then here's to new boundaries." Glasses clinked all around. Later, when the others drifted off to bed and only the embers of the fire remained, Gabby and I sat together on the terrace, the lake whispering against the shore. "They'll never forgive us," she said softly. "Maybe not," I admitted. "But that's not our job anymore. Our job is to forgive ourselves for letting it go on this long." She nodded, eyes glistening. "I used to think being the perfect daughter would save me. Turns out, it just trapped me." I smiled faintly. "And I used to think being independent made me invisible. Turns out, it made me strong enough to do this." For the first time in our 33 years, the line between us blurred, not rivals, not opposites, but sisters on the same side. The fire cracked once, and the lake shimmered as if to seal the promise. From this Easter forward, we would write our own story. Together.